There was a day I'll never forget. Not because anything terrible happened, but because everything was fine. And that was the terrifying part. I woke up in my decent apartment, made my overpriced coffee, glanced at my calendar, filled with meetings, check-ins, deadlines, lunch, catch-ups, Zoom calls, all the usual signs of a productive adult life. My phone buzzed with emails. People needed me. Clients were waiting. The grind was alive and well. And yet, I stood there, toothbrush in hand, staring at myself in the mirror like I was watching someone else's life, not hating it, not loving it, just numb. You ever feel like you're living a life that someone else designed for you? Everything was technically working. My career had traction, my friends checked in, my family was proud. But I felt like a machine running a program that had nothing to do with who I really was. That was the first crack. I didn't collapse. I didn't cry. I didn't rage quit my life and run off to Bali. What happened was quieter than that, and far more dangerous. I simply stopped caring. I started canceling plans. I stopped answering texts that didn't matter. I turned my phone off for an entire weekend. And the strangest thing happened. No one really noticed. And that's when it hit me. My life was loud, but it wasn't full. It was busy, but it wasn't mine. That weekend, I sat with a journal I hadn't touched in months. I wrote 3 columns. What drains me, what pretends to fulfill me but doesn't, what actually makes me feel alive. It was brutal. I realized I had built an entire lifestyle around things that looked successful but felt like slow death. What I deleted first: fake productivity. The endless to-do lists that made me feel busy but never brought me closer to anything meaningful. Approval chasing. Saying yes to things just so people wouldn't think I was selfish. Calendar stuffing. The illusion that a full schedule equals a full heart. And let me be honest, I didn't feel free right away. I felt lost. Because when you remove everything that's been distracting you, what you're left with is silence. And in that silence, you finally hear the question you've been avoiding. What am I even doing? Most people never get to that question because their life never shuts up long enough to hear it. I remember one night that week, I was sitting alone at my dining table. Lights off except for a candle, no music, no distractions, just the weird hum of silence. It was almost haunting. I wasn't scrolling, I wasn't talking, I wasn't achieving, I was just there. With myself. It was the most uncomfortable peace I had ever felt. But underneath that discomfort, something whispered back, "This is real." Nobody talks about this part. Everyone wants the success story, the glow-up, the before and after photos. But this emptying out is the real beginning. I didn't need more motivation. I needed subtraction. Not an upgrade, a deletion. That was the start of everything. Not when I added anything, but when I had the courage to start letting go. And what remained? A quiet kind of honesty. A sense that maybe I wasn't broken, maybe I was buried, and now I was finally digging. It's funny how you can have a full phone book, yet feel completely unseen. I used to think I had a strong social circle. People I'd grown up with, colleagues I bantered with, weekend hangout crews, even late-night vent buddies. But when I started reorganizing my life, I made a discovery that shattered me. Most of my friendships were built on routine, not real connection. It started small. I stopped initiating texts. I stopped replying to every, "Hey, what's the move this weekend?" message. I stopped liking stories on Instagram just to stay visible. And you know what happened? Nothing. The group chats didn't dry up, they just moved on. As if I had never existed. There were no calls, no, "Hey, are you okay?" No knock at my door, no pause. Just silence. At first it hurt. Then it confused me. Then I realized the truth. Some people aren't your friends. They're just people who had access to you while you were distracted. There was this one friend. Let's call him T. We used to hang out every other weekend. Bar hopping, random drives, movie nights, loud debates about nothing important. We laughed a lot, sure, but I started to notice something. Whenever the conversation got too deep, about dreams, fears, failures, things that actually mattered, he'd deflect, change the subject, make a joke. He was a fun person to be around, as long as I didn't bring too much of myself to the table. So I stopped reaching out, and he never once checked in. Here's what I learned. Deleting people from your life doesn't always mean blocking them. Sometimes it just means no longer shrinking yourself to fit their comfort zone. I looked around and realized I had crowded my life with people I couldn't grow with. People who only knew the version of me that kept the peace, laughed at the right moments, and didn't ask for more than surface-level friendship. What I deleted next: friends I couldn't be honest with. What's the point if I have to wear a mask around you? Friends who only came around when they needed something, advice, support, a place to unload. But when I was silent, ghosts. Group dynamics that drained me. I realized I wasn't enjoying the people. I was addicted to not being alone. And when I deleted those people, I found something strange. I started to like being alone. Not in a bitter, I don't need anybody way, but in a calm, full-bodied realization that I'd rather be alone than half seen. One night, I got invited to a birthday dinner. Old crew, familiar faces. I hesitated, then went. I thought maybe it was all in my head. Maybe I was being too harsh. But I sat at that table and realized I had nothing to say. They were talking about shows I didn't watch, gossip I didn't care about, jokes that felt stuck in 2018. And I just sat there. Not angry. Not awkward. Just done. That night was the funeral of a version of me that desperately wanted to belong. What remained? A much shorter contact list, a calendar with white space, a silence that used to scare me, but now feels sacred, and a strange, beautiful new rule. If I can't be my whole self around you, I'm not coming. There was a time when I thought exhaustion was a badge of honor. 4 hours of sleep? I'm grinding. Back-to-back meetings? I'm building. Skipping meals, dodging rest, pushing through burnout? I'm committed. That's the lie hustle culture sells you. If you're tired, it means you're doing it right. But let me tell you how that lie broke me. One Monday morning, I found myself sitting in front of my laptop, eyes open, brain offline. I had tasks, goals, deadlines, but I couldn't move. Not because I didn't want to, but because something inside me had quietly died. It wasn't a dramatic burnout. I didn't collapse on the floor. I just froze. It was like my mind and body both agreed. We're not doing this anymore. That was the day I realized I wasn't tired because I was chasing a dream. I was tired because I was running from myself. I looked back at the past year. Dozens of productive days. Countless hours grinding. But what had I really built? I had followers, but no fulfillment. I had money, but no margin. I had tasks, but no purpose. And the worst part? I looked successful to everyone else. But I was quietly drowning in a life that rewarded me for being busy, not effective. So I did the unthinkable. I quit hustle culture. Not my job, not my ambition. I quit the lie that I had to suffer to matter. I deleted my 5 a.m. wake-up routine that turned me into a zombie by noon. The motivational accounts on social media that equated laziness with rest. The guilt I felt every time I wasn't doing something productive. In their place, I built something boring. Yes, boring. I made space for real focus, not multitasking. I set boundaries, like real ones, not just airplane mode for 10 minutes. I worked fewer hours, but with deeper intensity. I stopped measuring success by how tired I felt at the end of the day. And guess what happened? I got more done. My creativity returned, my energy stabilized, my joy crept back in, not because I pushed harder, but because I stopped pushing stupidly. There was one afternoon that sealed it for me. I took a nap, just a 45-minute nap on a Tuesday, in the middle of a workday. The old me would have felt weak, lazy, ashamed. But when I woke up, something shifted. I wrote a piece of content that later got more engagement than anything I had posted in 6 months. Why? Because I wasn't running on fumes anymore. Turns out, inspiration doesn't come from burnout. It comes from presence. What remained? Stillness, deep work, energy I didn't have to steal from tomorrow, and a new understanding. Rest isn't a reward, it's a prerequisite. People don't need more hours. They need more honesty about what actually matters. And if you're constantly tired, distracted, and emotionally flat, it might not be because you're lazy. It might be because you've been lied to. I used to call it growth, progress, discipline, leveling up. But in reality, what I was doing to myself was war. It looked innocent from the outside. Waking up earlier, working out daily, journaling, reading 50 books a year, eating clean, tracking my habits with color-coded apps. I wore it all like armor. I was becoming better. Or so I thought. But something felt off. I wasn't becoming more myself. I was becoming a performance of who I thought I should be. And that's when the real truth hit me like a freight train. Most of what I called self-improvement was actually self-rejection. There was one moment that opened my eyes. I was standing in front of the mirror after a workout. Sweat dripping, heart pounding, body leaner than ever. On paper, I was crushing it, but I looked in the mirror and hated what I saw. Not because I was out of shape, but because nothing was ever enough. A voice in my head whispered, "You're still behind. You should have started sooner. You're not there yet." There. That mythical there that never arrives. That's when I realized improvement isn't supposed to make you hate where you are, but that's exactly what it had done to me. So I started deleting again. This time, it wasn't just habits, it was beliefs. I deleted the idea that I had to earn my worth. I deleted the fantasy that if I could just fix myself enough, then I'd finally feel happy. I deleted the need to chase the best version of myself and started learning how to live with the real version of me. One of the hardest things to delete. The idea that pain equals progress. That if something wasn't hard or miserable or complicated, it didn't count. That's a toxic lie. Growth doesn't have to feel like punishment. Sometimes it's gentle, quiet, deep. Sometimes it feels like rest. Here's the moment that changed everything. I skipped a workout on purpose, not because I was lazy, but because my body was tired, my mind needed stillness, and I finally honored that. I sat on my balcony that morning instead. Hot coffee, no phone, no pressure, just breathing, just being. And for the first time in a long time, I felt proud of myself. Not because of what I did, but because I listened. What remained? Self-respect, stillness without shame. A new rule. If your self-improvement plan requires you to hate who you are now, it's not growth. It's violence. Let me be clear, there's nothing wrong with wanting to grow. But if that growth costs you peace, joy, and self-trust, it's not growth. It's another prison. You don't need to become someone else to be worthy. You just need to stop running from who you already are. Here's the part you won't hear in most transformation stories. The part they leave out. The part that doesn't get likes or applause. When you finally start deleting everything that's fake, loud, and performative from your life, What's left is terrifying because it's just you. No distractions, no noise, no one to impress, no more excuses, just you. And the question you've been avoiding your whole life. Now that I have my life back, what the hell do I do with it? That's the thing no one tells you. Freedom isn't always comforting. Sometimes it's paralyzing. See, most people don't want freedom. They want familiarity dressed up as normal life. That's the bold truth. Most people aren't changing their life. They're just decorating their prison. They repaint the walls, buy new furniture, upgrade their routines, rearrange the same toxic habits in a more aesthetic way. But the foundation? Still built on fear, approval, ego, and autopilot. Let me tell you the most uncomfortable moment of this journey. I had finally cleaned out my digital life, my social calendar, my to-do list, and even my inner monologue. Everything was stripped down to the bare essentials. And I remember waking up one morning, lying in bed with nothing scheduled, no calls, no noise, just space. And I panicked. Not because something was wrong, but because for the first time, nothing was. No chaos, no urgency, no role to play. And that's when I realized I didn't know how to live without dysfunction. That moment broke me and built me, because that's when I finally understood. You don't become free by changing what's around you. You become free by facing what's inside you. That means sitting in the discomfort. That means letting go of identities that made you feel safe. That means admitting, I don't really know who I am without the noise, but I'm willing to find out. What remained? Truth, silence, a blank canvas, and a strange kind of peace that didn't feel like euphoria. It felt like real life beginning. Now I live differently, not because I have it all figured out, but because I finally stopped lying to myself. I don't chase potential anymore. I protect my peace. I don't crave more. I crave real. And I don't perform for anyone, not even myself. If you're listening to this and something in your soul feels stirred, good. Because this isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming honest. And if you've made it this far, I want to ask you something brave. What have you deleted from your life? And what remained? Tell me in the comments. I'm going to be reading every one. I want to hear your story. Not the filtered version, the real one, because someone else out there needs it. Maybe they'll see themselves in your words, the same way you saw yourself in mine. Let's stop decorating prisons. Let's start building lives we actually want to wake up to.